Hello and welcome to the very first episode of Star Xpose TV. I'm very excited to be presenting you with the very first show here today, where we'll be interviewing celebrities and stars of the entertainment industry. And today we have our very first star who has come all the way from Canada to us live today, and it's actually 2 a.m. in the morning over in Canada right now. I'm Aldwyn Altuney, coming to you from the Gold Coast, and this is the beauty of technology, of course, that we can chat with you from anywhere in the world, and so excited to be coming to you today. So my beautiful special guest today, she has done screenwriting for feature films, short films and TV since 1999. She's worked as a ghostwriter and is now a consultant and script editor with over 20 features of her own. Our special guest will talk about the years of setup, actually since 2009, of her latest sci-fi franchise project with Epagon Pictures. It's entitled Laurel Guard, and also her co-writing challenges in the tech age. And we've had just one or two of those today. However, we soldier on. So drum roll, please, for our beautiful special guest, Orlanda Szabo. Welcome.
Hello.
Hello, Orlanda. Thank you so much for joining us all the way from Canada, particularly at 2 a.m. in the morning over there. And you say this is actually quite normal for you to be working at 2 a.m.?
Oh, yeah, very normal, very normal.
So, and you look fantastic. You don't look tired at all. So how do you keep your energy up to be working at this time in the morning?
Maybe, well, you just get your 8 hours later. That's pretty much all you can do.
Yeah, and I guess it all balances out with the body clock. I mean, you know, right now as we're speaking, you know, someone's waking up in the world, someone's going to sleep somewhere in the world, and I guess it's just working with your body clock. And you know, when you feel tired, go to sleep, and when you don't, then you know, stay awake. And you know, I must say I'm a bit of a night owl myself. You know, on the Gold Coast, I do like the night times. It takes me a fair while to get myself together in the morning. I would definitely not say I'm a morning person. However, you know, perhaps you could be trained to be a morning person or a night person. Either way you go. Although working in the entertainment industry, you know, often many people are night people in the entertainment industry.
Well, yeah, but it's also relative. It's all relative to where you are. In one place you're a night owl, another place you're a morning person, another place you're an afternoon person. It just all depends on your geography.
Well, that's true too. That's true too. So let's get stuck into it. We've got so much to talk about. It's amazing, your list of credentials in the industry. You've been a screenwriter for so long now, over 20 features of your own. So how did you first get into screenwriting, Orlanda?
Basically just one day, just decided that now was the time to do something different. And it was, and it all started basically from well, some dreams I had, you know, and they ended up becoming a TV series, and on and on and on it goes.
Wow. So can you share a bit about these dreams? I'm curious.
Well, put it this way, they turned into a new Kung Fu series that, you know, would have been like 10 or 15 years after the one before.
Wow. Okay. And anything specifically, like, was it the same kind of dream you were having again and again, or?
It was like a series. It was a series of dreams, and it's a story after story after story, and you just keep on going.
And did you feel compelled to actually write about those?
Oh,
did you feel a calling?
Yeah. If I didn't write, then the dreams come back. So, and they weren't necessarily nice.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. So this is a good way to actually give yourself a bit of therapy, I guess, or healing, is actually to get the thoughts out on the computer, I guess. Would you say?
I wouldn't have called it healing or anything else. No, it was just a matter to get that thought process down. I think it was more a way to learn the drama. There you go.
Great. And so you started to write down to get the thoughts out, and then where did you go from there? How did you then turn that into a screenplay or a script, and how did you go about then pitching that to get it into production?
Well, when you're in small town Manitoba in Canada, you don't have any screenwriting schools. There are no really big box stores where you can find screenwriting books or anything else. So it was a matter, literally, they were stories until such time as I could find a screenwriting book on how to write, because it was before I was on computer. Right, so you didn't have the same kind of links, you didn't have the same, well, the mega information that you have now on screenwriting, formatting, everything that goes along with screenwriting. So it was a real challenge.
Okay, so how did you kind of learn from there? How did you fine-tune your craft?
Well, from there I did find a screenwriting group in Winnipeg, where I went for a couple of years, and well, by then I was onto the internet, and I started finding a lot more things, and by 2008 I had signed up with Screenwriting U, which was an online screenwriting program, and with Hal Crosman, and that from there on, it just everything has just gone skyrocketed. Just simply because now you know, right? You know what now you know for sure you have nailed what every screenplay needs, right?
Okay, and what are some of those things that every screenplay needs? Can you share some of your tips of what you must have in a screenplay?
It must have. Oh, well, with so many different genres and so many different types of screenplays, it all depends on what you're playing with. But every screenplay needs to have interest, entertainment. It's got to have drama, in a sense of not necessarily drama queen type drama, but it's got to have intensity. It's got to have something that basically just, hooks in either a reader or a viewer, and just they forget where they are. And that's the whole thing. So I mean, if you as a writer can't visualize how this is going to run in your head, if you're not seeing the scenes, then it's kind of hard to do a really solid job of screenwriting.
So you need to lose yourself in the script, I guess, as people lose themselves in movies. When they're watching the movie, you've got to actually lose yourself, and you've got to be able to visualize all the different components and
all the different people, and all the different language situations, as well as locations and everything else, and how one scene leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. It's got to play. If you can't see the scenes running in your head, I just that's just a piece that gets chucked sooner rather than later when I'm screenwriting. Just simply because it becomes a non-issue. If you can't see it, you can't build on it.
So how many hours would it take to actually develop say a 90-minute feature film, to develop the script for that? How long would that actually take to write up, or how many hours, I guess, because you probably write at different times? How long would that take to write generally? How many hours?
You can't place that in hours. Try months.
Wow. Okay.
Months. So, yes. If you're writing a full screenplay, I mean, because first you have to set it up, you have to outline it, you have to know where your story is going to go, and you have to know who your characters are. And you don't really learn that fully until you're like at least halfway through the script. Then your characters start kicking in, and they're telling you what to write, right? And then you go back and you go through and you write again. You do the rewrite. You get to know your characters deeper and deeper and deeper, until you're into their psyche. And now they're completely three-dimensional, right?
Right.
So, and those are the type of characters most actors love to play. Because there's the depth, there's intensity, there's subtleties that are only there for that character and nobody else, right? Because that's something you build in as you go along, draft after draft after draft.
So that's a real fine art form, really. Not everyone, I could imagine, would be able to do that. Will be able to basically see a character come to life and then bring it to life. In words, it's really quite a
well, yeah, that is a challenge. Yeah, that is a challenge because you know who they are, you know what they should be, but to get it on the paper so that other people understand the same thing you know that's the tough part.
Yes, absolutely. And can you share a little bit about, you know, your very first screenplays you wrote? So you said it came from dreams. So what was the name of that, and what did you go on to do after that?
Oh, well, as I said, that turned into a Kung Fu series, which, of course, never went anywhere, but it sure did train me on how to write.
Okay.
You know, that was my training ground, really. And
Okay.
then from there, through a writers group, I pushed into features, and started writing there.
Okay. So the Kung Fu series, is it likely that could one day be picked up and could be created into something?
Well, probably not, because there is only one place you can sell it.
Okay.
Right? You know, it's owned by one studio, and that's it. So if they're not going to do another Kung Fu, it's never going to get done.
Oh, okay. So how does that work? I'm not quite aware of that. So why is there only one place that does Kung Fu?
Because they own the Kung Fu franchise.
Oh, okay.
They hold the rights to it, and if they are not into doing it, doing another one, then it just doesn't get done.
Right. Okay. Oh, that's a bit of a bugger. Okay. All right. So okay. So then you went on and did some other ones, and do you have a favorite that you've done so far?
Oh, gee, well, every one is a favorite in one way or another, right?
Yeah.
But my first one, time and again, is it's like an adventure, but it loops around. Like you end up starting back at ending back at the beginning.
Oh, I like that.
Because you're dealing with the past and the present at the same time. You know, in one person's pardon me, in one person's view, it's being seen in the past, and then from another person's point of view, they're in the present seeing the past.
Oh, wow, that sounds really interesting.
Yeah, but it ends up going around, and it's about a woman and a man who were coming here, like to North America, way back in 1600s on a ship, or 1800s, pardon me, on a ship, and how he travels across and works his way across to becoming a rich person by the time he gets to the other side of America, and then he's coming back to where they started off. Right, he's leaving on the ship of the same ship that we saw them going to land in another country.
Right. That sounds really interesting. So that gets people thinking, that one.
Yeah, but it's the interlacing between the two people, the woman and the man, and how their paths interlinked through all these times, present and past.
And with each movie that you write, do you actually think about, is there an overall sort of stronger statement or moral of the story generally with each film that you do or each project?
Pretty much, yes. Yeah, there's always a set premise of what the overreaching theme is about, all the way across the line, because you have to have there. I mean, there has to be a goal, which is pretty much what your premise is. It's the advancing and how to get to that goal where you want to be at the end.
And there generally needs to be a protagonist or a main character too, doesn't there? And there needs to be some kind of challenge that's overcome, and generally some kind of transformation by the end of the film of a character transforming or metamorphing into another form. Would you say? Is that, well, I did screen studies years ago.
Well, okay, see, now, I do write sci-fi and fantasy, so that morphing into something else could really be fun. That could be a fun challenge. You never know. But yes.
Delayed reaction from the audience.
But normally, yeah. Actually, it's helpful if both your antagonist and your protagonist change somewhat. What's also more fun is if they're both after the same thing, they're just after it for different reasons. So half the time now this becomes a race. This is where you're usually where your ticking clock comes into play, right? And usually what builds action movies.
And sound is so important in films.
But that's usually what kicks action movies into gear. Literally. You've got a ticking time bomb. You have to get that before the bomb happens. You have to, you have to save this person before the train goes, derails or right. There's millions of ways you could set it up, but it still comes down to something has to be done in a set amount of time, right? And it usually very quickly.
Yes, which creates that action and drama and excitement and keeps you on the edge of your seat.
Well, that's right, and it forces your characters to make not necessarily the right decisions, but they're going to make snap decisions.
Yes,
which usually comes from their gut instinct. So that's a deeper part of their character that you get to learn about, right? That you wouldn't have otherwise learned if they were, say, if it was a different genre. You may not have ever learned that little bit about them.
Interesting.
Whether they make an automatic good decision, do they always make bad decisions in a snap? Do they get flustered and not make a decision? There's, the sky's the limit, really.
Yeah, nice, and it's such a beautiful creative process. It's fantastic. I love writing and all the different forms of writing, and of course, screenwriting is quite an art form. Can you explain a bit about Mortal Guard? What is that about?
Well, okay. Laurel Guard is a sci-fi trilogy that Vassilis, Kontodimas put together, and I did the first consultation on that in 2009. So that's basically when that project started in 2009.
Wow.
Which was like, wow. So, when they say it takes 10 years to get a movie out there, I mean, they're not kidding, right? Wow. It takes time. It can't happen overnight and really be done solid, if you know what I mean. If you want to get everything, especially when you're talking about, a big sci-fi movie, it cannot be done in a short period of time because there's just too many factors that come into play. For instance, pulling together the team once the script was set up far enough to bring in new people. So once we had it to where we wanted it to go, then you have director of development comes in, and then you have also other producers. You have a director come in, then you've got cinematographers, you've got line producers, you've got the FX people, you've got CGI people, and everybody is coming through, and and you have to go through the script with a fine-tooth comb because you're picking every single detail. Is this CGI? Is it not? Is it live? Right? Especially if you're working, as you know, sci-fi, because you're going to have CGI, right? Because most of it does not happen on Earth.
But for those who are watching this that don't know what CGI is, what is CGI?
Well, CGI is basically your extra graphics that show your people doing things that are extraordinary.
Yes. So
Keanu Reeves in The Matrix. That's his flips, this, that. Most of it is CGI. The way they set up the different types of backgrounds a lot of times will be either CGI or green screen, which means you have a visual of where they are on the screen and the acting happens in front of that.
Yeah, I'd say CGI would be a lot more popular nowadays than the old days. I know in the old days they used to do a lot of stunts themselves. Actually, one of my ex-boyfriends, a guy called Dar Davies, he was actually one of the stunt guys in The Matrix. He was one of the police.
Oh, cool.
The Jedis in Star Wars, and he was also in Mad Max. And back then they did a lot of their own stunts, back in the early 80s. And I think now that's really changed a lot. So why has that changed so much, would you say, in the industry in that time?
Well, they haven't stopped doing the stunts at all. It's just that the completion of the stunt is so much more extraordinary than what could actually physically, humanly be done. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, because not everybody can do literally what stunt people do, because that's just phenomenal. Like, wow, right? But there's a point the physical human body can go to, and you can't go any farther than that. So the rest of it now is CGI. Or if you're having actually characters that aren't real, those are generally CGI.
Right, right. And there are some amazing effects. And, the makeup is amazing too. The hair and makeup jobs that are done on some films are unbelievable. But I guess CGI will probably help take it to a whole other level again with where hair and
it can, but that takes a lot of work on the back end when it comes down to the editing after the fact. Because there's so many things that have to be tracked when you have CGI makeup, right?
Right.
But thank goodness for technology, because you can actually track it and do that now.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. So, wow, big project then, Mortal Guard. So it's been really 8 years in the making then so far.
Yes.
And you've also been working with Mellissa Briley as well, director.
Yes. Yeah. And that specifically is on the Prelude pieces, which are going to be segments that will play individually on the internet. They're not going to be actual commercials. They're going to actually play. But when you get to the last one, when you finish there, then we start into the feature, Eternae.
Sounds very exciting. Right. And now, why sci-fi for you? Why are you drawn to sci-fi with your writing?
Oh, I just always have loved sci-fi all my life. I don't know. Maybe because my mom should have been a scientist. There were things, there were all kinds of things that she taught us as kids that we learned well before we learned them in science class, right? But most of hers it was in how you use it logically, in everyday life, right? I mean, physics was, an everyday learning thing,
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. And you've got Homeworld coming up soon. You're going to be show running and co-writing that, the Homeworld limited TV series with Vassilis Kontodimas, a Greek guy, of course, who talks about that. I'm actually Greek Orthodox, so Vassili, I can relate there. So can you tell us a little bit more about Homeworld?
Okay, it's part of the Laurel Guard series, and what it is it'll be after every movie, there's going to be a set of TV series that will play, so you have something to watch while you're waiting for the next one to come up.
Right.
Because our plan for the movies is to try to get them as close to back as is possible to be filming them. Hopefully try to get at least two of them done in a year, so that there's not a major gap happening between movies. But in the interim, we'll have the TV series, which is going to be set obviously on another world. That of what is happening there, that's happening between the times of the two movies as well. So we'll have some of the people that are in the movies are going to cut off and go into the TV series, but stuff that you do in the TV series, you will see later in the next movie. Like whether it's technology or if it's information they have found, either way, it's all going to interact. Just like the Prelude does to start with, it jumps right into the movie, and then we go to the movies, then we go to the TV series, and then we go to the next movie, and then TV series between those two, and just keep on running it.
Awesome. That sounds great. And now it is a limited TV series. So how long is each episode going to go for, and how many are we going to see?
Well, there'll be 1 hour episodes, and we're not 100% sure yet, because right now, a standard TV series it generally is 22 episodes. But I'm not sure if we're not sure how far the storyline is going to move from part 1 to part 2. Between the movies, we have to set up part of that outline yet. So we don't have that set. It could be probably anywhere from, I would say 8 to 16, probably.
Okay.
That wouldn't. That would round it out pretty good. So you have a solid footing in the actual world that we're building.
Okay, sounds very exciting. And Epagon also has 2 of your other sci-fi features at the moment for consideration, as well as the first feature, Journey to War, of your Descendant Past trilogy. And now, can you explain a bit about how Epagon and yourself connected, and what that process was like? I guess what it's like. Well, currently they're considering it. So, what is that process like to actually go from screenplay to actually getting it produced?
Screenplay to getting produced. It all depends on your genre. Some genres are just easier to get through than others, because the costs obviously are a lot less. On, say, a contained drama compared to a big sci-fi, the funding is a huge difference.
Right.
But from screenplay to production, that's what we touched on earlier with, bringing in all the other people, and now you have to break down the script and get everything set up and know what your props are. You have to know what your wardrobe is, and start hunting and casting for your actors, which can take a lot of time, because everybody has their own schedules and everybody has to try to slice it in together. Like, ourselves, we did that a Skype read on a script, and it took us weeks to get 8 people together to do the read, and that was just 8 people, right?
Yeah. From around the world. Yeah.
Yeah, and then around the world, yes, on tech, as we're doing now.
Yeah, and thanks to Michael Leonard Thompson if he's watching this. So
yes,
Michael,
totally.
a lot of that together. We've done two.
Yes, he did pull them all together. Yeah,
he did. So I guess that really helps too, is having that team effort and having having someone.
It does, and that's the same with the screenplay. With the Laurel Guard, Vassilis wrote them himself, and I was a consultant. So that's not the same as me having a spec script and trying to get it out there, though. Because if you're a writer and you don't know anybody in the industry yet, you really do have to go out there and start meeting people. Because if nobody knows you, they can't know how good the story is if they don't read the log line, or the pitch or the query, right? Because generally something has to catch them in order to get them to open up that email and say, yeah, I'm going to read this one. Right. Because their plates are full. They get thousands of emails a week. So, it's crazy. Right.
Yeah. So it's a lot.
But getting a champion and this is where Vassilis came in, is we sort of knew each other before I did the consultation for him and worked on his script through LinkedIn. So we sort of knew each other, but he took the chance on my being able to help him because we both work in sci-fi, which he knew ahead of time, right? And that just snowballed it, right? So after that, anything that I had that was sci-fi, he no problem. He wanted to see it because that is his genre. And that's half of the trick right there, is to make sure that when you're sending out queries, when you're getting in touch with people, make sure you're sending to the right people, the people that actually do want to see what genre you have written.
Yes, yes. And now also there's certain times of the year that are actually good also to pitch. I know in America, particularly if you're pitching to
Oh,
some...
specifically for TV, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
There's a certain times of the year that they actually produce the films and TV too. Is that correct? And
eh, generally, yeah. Generally, summertime is when they do their major, doing their major filming for TV, depending on the series, because some of them play in wintertime. So, I mean, it has to be winter. But generally, it's right after the new year is when when they're looking for new TV series.
right, yeah, straight after
Yeah,
the new... Yeah,
yeah, yeah. And
yeah.
well, at the end of summer is usually when they're looking for features.
Okay.
You
Yes,
know,
that's a good tip to remember.
but
And then...
then yeah, but then now with a lot of the online stations and stuff, you know, that line's getting blurred. You know, it's becoming so there is no set time. You know that any one thing, because pretty much they're looking all the time now. You know, but certain companies, yeah, they'll certain studios, I guess, would be more likely the thing that they're setting. They have the ones that have a time period of when they bring things in, because they have to set budgets for everything, for what they're going to bring in, and until they know what their budget is for the year, they can't really set anything up themselves.
Yeah. So it's a bit of a process there, and a bit of a waiting game, I guess, too, and maybe a hope and pray game in some ways, and fingers crossed. And
Well, everything in life is a game. So I mean, everything in its time.
yes,
When it's due, it's due.
Yeah, I've heard people say it takes a lifetime to become an overnight success. So,
that's what I say. Yeah, yeah, I keep hearing that. Yes, 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 yes. I'm a 15-year newbie. Sure, okay,
yeah.
I can live with that.
And I guess that's the thing is, being really persistent. I guess you have to really love what you do in this industry to really stick with it for, as long as you have. I mean, I don't know
totally. Yeah.
How you survive financially as you go, because I guess, a lot of the time you're working without any promise of any money for anything. So, how do you do that as a screenwriter? Yeah, just keep going when there's no promise of financial reward.
Usually because your stories in your head are just bigger than life.
Mm-hmm.
When you have to write, you have to write. I mean, actors do it all the time. If you have to act, you have to act. And they will, and you go to the calls. In our case, I mean, you go with the calls for screenplays. Because companies do that. There are sites where you can go and find out, who's looking for what type of movies, and if you've got movies that are in their category and of the same type that they're looking for, yeah, that's your best bet, is literally to shoot it in with a good one pager, and see what happens.
Awesome. And now, talking of the one pager, so what do you need in that one pager? How would you word it? What do you need to have in that one pager?
Yeah. Well, basically, your what the genre is your key. Right there, your genre, log line, and a short synopsis of basically, try to hit the highs and lows. Like this leads to this, leads to this. Basically the bad guy does this, so this guy has to do this. But that's very, very simplistic, because you have to show the flow of the actual story. And every story is so different that, anytime you write one, it's always different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. And then there's the challenge of working with people from all over the world as far as your actual co-writers. So not just, doing a play read. So you've teamed up with Kaz Drysdale, and you're now working closely with the wonderful Kaz, who's she brought her in actually to co-write parts 2 and 3 of the Descendant Past trilogy. So how did you find Kaz? Yeah.
Well,
How did you
actually,
find Kaz?
we met through Screenwriting U. She had taken the course a few years before I did, and we just became friends. On the Screenwriting U site, we did chat the same as we would if we were on Skype or Facebook, and we just found that we had a whole heck of a lot in common with how we view the things that were happening in the world, really. And that's how and then we ended up, it is like, okay, we gotta write this down, right? And that's how Rogan'sWar ended up happening, because it's basically a cautionary tale about where, going by the headlines, what was happening at the time we wrote it, like 5 years ago. Where would this take us in the future, right? And now we're finding out what we wrote. We weren't so far off, right? But there were definite correlations between then and now. How we wrote it, and what's up politically now, which was really, really strange to find that.
Well, I guess you had some foresight, maybe some wisdom, some of that.
I think if you look at the larger view, the whole world view, rather than just the small view, because that's how we saw it. Even the feature itself, it is in one place, but the worldwide, far-reaching effects of it are huge, right? And that's how we wrote it, and that's the kind of stuff that's happening now. Is that what's decided now will have far-reaching effects on everybody, except, of course, ours is like, it's like almost like a sci-fi thriller, action thriller movie. I don't think most people would want to be put in that position, to be honest.
So without giving too much of the story away, could we, say one or two things that that people can expect to see in that? Tying to world events, with what's happening at the moment.
Well, a lot to do with well, hey, food, weather, you name it. Most people saying, well, there's too many mouths to feed and stuff like this. I mean, the how they go about trying to cure that problem was lots of fun and very strange to write, but we hope it never ever comes to that.
Yeah. Okay, great. So that'll be a nice suspenseful one. So Kaz right now, she's just hopped off a plane somewhere. Where's Kaz right now? She's always traveling the world doing something exciting.
Yeah, she's in Mexico right now.
Okay, what is she doing in Mexico?
She's in Mexico right now, yeah. Which is strange, because for the first time since we've been co-writing, she is now on my time zone. Like, we are actually on the exact same time zone for the first time in, what was it, almost 10 years?
Wow.
Right. So, I mean, we've talked and we've co-written back and forth when she was in Germany, she was in Cambodia, she was in the Philippines, she was in Morocco. She's been all over the place. I mean, we even had a meeting when she was at an airport waiting for an airplane, Wow. There was a 3-hour delay, wait for, boarding and everything. We had our meeting while she was there. Awesome. It, like she said, it kept her awake. So
The Adventures of Kaz, that could be a whole other screenplay.
Yeah. Well, we're hopefully we will actually meet in person the first time this summer, which would be awesome.
That's amazing.
Which would be awesome, yeah.
Wow.
Because she is that close, and I mean, we can meet up halfway. It's cool.
That would be amazing. Wow, that's awesome. Yeah. And Kaz will be on Star Xpose TV in one of our.
She will.
So stay posted for that. Now, what other tips can you give people, Orlanda, who maybe want to get into screenwriting? What are the essential things they need, I guess, apart from passion and wanting to do it? What are some things that people need to actually get a script off the ground?
I think the first thing somebody new at it has to learn is you don't know what you don't know. Like, don't assume you know how. one of the one of the best books I came across was a Screenwriter's Bible. And that's because it shows you not only format, which is critically important for timing your pages, right? So 1 page equals 1 minute. You have 90 pages, gives you 90 minutes, conceivably. It's never 100% accurate because, you know, action is what action is, right? But you get your formatting, you also get your layout, and you also get how you set what elements have to be in place physically in view to visualize, like for example, you know, interior Aldwyn's studio.
Yes.
Well, you can't just have somebody start talking, because then we don't know who's all in the room, right? You have to have an action line first that states, okay, you've got the ocean in the background, you're sitting at your desk in front of your computer. And that literally would be the action line, right? And then Aldwyn, then your dialogue, what you're saying, right?
Nice.
But
nice
and
right
yeah, hey, it's cool. It's cool. It's cool.
The other
thing, but the other thing people have to remember, because all of us are used to reading prose. We're used to reading books. We're used to reading textbooks, novels. Everything we read is in prose, and it's in past tense. 9 times out of 10, right? So you have to remember that is not a book. It'll never be a book. This cannot be a book. It has to be in the present right now. They do this, right? You know, it's not they are doing this. It's like, no, they're not walking. He struts, man. You know, you can't be passive. If in a book it takes you 3 sentences to explain something, you got to suck that down to like 10 words that describe that, right? And it can't be in your head. It has to be literal dialogue. They have to say it out loud to somebody. Thoughts, you can't see thoughts on film, right?
Yeah, it's interesting because when you share a story with people, if you share it in the present tense as if you're actually in that moment, it's amazing how much more powerful that is than if you say, I went here and I went there, or I'm going here, you know?
Well, exactly, and that's exactly it. Past tense and future tense, you know, is what you just had. That you see in books, and that's the way they're supposed to be. But in a movie, you're in now. You're in the present. You're in right now. So it's like what you see in the camera, that's what you state. Period. You know.
And do you actually?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Do you actually storyboard the each scene as well, or does that get done down the track?
Oh no, that gets done for filming.
Okay,
that's a breakdown for filming, and where you know where the actors' marks are, how you're going to move, which way the light has to be coming from, even so much as to which side sound effects come to. Now with stereo surround sound, we have to know if that car is coming up behind them, the sound effect is going to come up on those speakers only, right? It's not going to come up on the side speakers or the front speakers. So I mean, there's all kinds of things that have to play into it and have to be marked and checked and set up, so that when you come to editing, then you know how to actually lay it out and how many different things have to be actually put into that tiny little frame. You know, a film, right? As such, because of course now it's all, you know, on computer frames and not you know, 35 millimeter.
Yeah, no, like the old days. And I guess a lot of that, you know, the visualization that comes in the screen in the actual final film is really dependent on how detailed the original script is. Yes.
Yes. Very much so. But to the point, you can't sit there and describe every tiny little thing, because now you're turning it into a book again. But you have to be able to give the reader a snapshot visual in their mind, where for example, your office, right, your studio, they have to have that snapshot in their head. So every time they come back to that location, that snapshot does not need to be repeated. They know that. They know where it is, what's where, what's normally sitting on the desk, and if something is missing, they generally do notice. If you deliberately take something off the desk, right?
Mm.
You know, one of those, you know, show the desk thing that, it's gone. Where did it go? Meanwhile, you're looking for all over the place for something, and where did it go?
Yes, good point. And what about when the writer thinks about the character? You know, how do they come up with their characters?
Oh wow, gee, you know, sky's the limit, really. Um, but I'm finding I'm having a lot of fun figuring the characters with Kaz. Just simply because Kaz just absolutely loves to play devil's advocate.
Okay.
And so I mean, it's a hoot. We can do 8 hours of throwing ideas back and forth and building characters, and we literally set them up with at least 4 character traits. You know, and whether those 4 traits stay is another story, because sometimes you need them to be more dynamic or more something else or less something else. And as the story morphs, it can change slightly, but you don't want it to change too much, because then you're changing your base character. Unless, of course, you're changing from male to female, then some things have to definitely change. You know, including how they go about doing things, gut instinct, stuff like that, right?
Yeah. Okay, great. And now, you know, other challenges of having a co-writer who normally lives on the other side of the planet. You know, what are some other challenges you've had with that and with the co-writer?
Thunderstorms, somewhere between here and there.
Right.
That's generally the biggie. If there's a storm somewhere between here and whoever it is I am talking to, you'll generally get hiccups, if not be dropped completely, and there's just no connection. You can't get through. Or, you know, you have somebody's server goes down, or you get. Some people are familiar with one type of format, the online format. Others are familiar with other types of formats, and now you've got two or three or four people all trying to get set up onto the same format so everybody can all talk at the same time, and you know, really get everything moving. Because we do that with production meetings. I mean, we do that with script reads, and that really is the fun part about tech, is you never know from 1 minute to the next whether or not you're going to be online, right? So Kaz and I tend to get, when we're working, we tend to get a ton done, just simply because we know it could be dropped at any time. So I don't know, in 8 hours, I mean, we could easily write like 30 pages of a script, just simply because we already have the outline. We already know who our characters are, you know, because we've, you know, built them to a point where we can, you know, each of us is playing a different part in our heads as we're writing. We're back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and then, you know, once the dialogue comes in, well, then it's fun and games, man.
Interesting. So I was going to ask about the actual process of co-writing. Like, would you write a bit and then they write a bit, and then, or you just the whole way just writing it together?
No, Kaz and well, I've done it that way before, where one writes and the other one goes through, makes changes. It works great, really, if you have if you're only a part-time onto something. Like if you're not a full, like, you know, because Kaz and I are 50-50 partners on you know, the stuff that we work on. But if I'm doing, say, a consultation with somebody and we're doing it on Skype, then they have already written what they have written, and then we will go through and talk over and all the details, and making sure they have the right details in the right place, so that it's a cohesive story. Because a lot of time, like myself even, it's nice to have Kaz to read my work, because when you're that close to it, there's little stuff you don't notice that is missing or something that's in there shouldn't be in there. Right?
Yeah, that's a good point. And I guess the other thing too with partnerships is it needs to be with someone you can trust, who you feel comfortable with, because you do hear a lot
Totally. Completely, yeah.
that, you know, that can end up very ugly.
Yes. No, hey, the only time it ends up ugly is if you don't write a contract.
Right. So
if
that's
you write a contract first and everybody knows what their job is, and that at the end of writing this, we both have to market it. You know, we both have to advertise. We both have to do up the marketing materials, and we both have to, you know, send out to contests, right? Stuff like that. I mean, that's all in our contract. Even to the point of if one of us was to pass away, we know what happens to the work. Either way.
That's very detailed. Right? So you got a lawyer to do that, or do you have an industry standard sort of contract that you base?
Well, there's lots of industry standards, and we just modified it to suit us.
Got it. Yeah. So that's important.
It's very important because I mean, if you don't trust your co-writer enough to talk about these things, then you're not going to get anywhere in co-writing, because obviously if you can't get together on the contract, you're not going to get together on the story.
Yes.
Right. And yeah, I mean, you have each other's back, as simple as that.
Awesome.
So
and as you said,
it helps that we were friends first.
Yes. Yeah. And that you were both studying screenwriting, or you're in a group with the screenwriting.
Yes.
So you had
in Screenwriting U. Yeah. So I mean, we had a lot of the same lessons on how to build story, how to build characters, how to build in subtext. Mind you, Kaz and I did that anyway all the time. That was just a given for us. I don't know if it was from. I don't know if it's because like Canadian, Australian. The way we learned in school, subtext was a given. You know, it's just there. I mean, we don't even think about it as we don't go into a script thinking, oh, we have to add subtext. It's just automatically there. Right? It might be more subtle than most people, but it's always there.
Yeah. Yeah, very good. And, you know, really, you've been at this so long. Has this been, like, while you've been doing this, I guess, in the early days, were you doing some other part-time jobs on the side, or has this been your number one love and what you've spent most of your days doing, the screenwriting?
Pretty much. I have been fortunate to have a husband who has had a decent job, and I could stay at home and I could work. And well, the first 5-6 years I spent learning the trade, learning how to screenwrite and do it properly. First things first, right? And it was almost immediately after that I became a consultant. And it's funny because people just found me online. You know, on that, I'm fortunate again. I had a friend who was learning how to build websites, and she tested her trade on me. She used me as, you know, so of course I had to get information to her. So I mean, as I'm writing, as new stuff is being written, I had to shoot it off to her, and she had to add to the website, and and that was how she learned how to build websites properly. And she did a phenomenal job of it. And she was an ex-teacher. She was a retired teacher.
Wow.
So I mean, it's never too late to ever learn anything, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you love it, just do it, because, you know, I think if you do love something, there's probably, you know, a calling there that you should follow to actually do more. And if you love it, you'll be good at it as well.
Generally. Well, we hope so. We hope so.
Yeah. Yeah. You'd be more inspired to be good or better at it. So.
Well, the thing is, if you get the right kind of training, or not necessarily training, but mentoring.
Yes.
Right. You know, somebody can tell you if you're being a turkey, you know, like, you know, stop doing that already. You know, somebody who'll talk to you honest, really, when it comes right down to it. If you're, you know, you're going way off in left field and it's like, no, we're not going there. You need somebody to actually rein you back.
Yes.
Right. You know, teach you some of the ropes of the trade, as well as the industry. You know,
Yes.
And on that score, I mean, I went through Screenwriting U. I went down to LA twice and met and pitched a number of directors and producers for it was like a 5-day thing each time. So I mean, that's a lot of people, really. But it trained us and it got us to learn how to pitch, how to talk to people specific about a specific story and only that story, so that you're not tripping over words. You're not trying to do it too fast, so that you're not mixing up what it is you had. You're not forgetting what part of your pitch is, stuff like that. Basically, to do like we're doing is to make it go with the flow.
Yes.
Right? To hopefully you want it to become a conversation rather than just a pitch.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's right. To really build that relationship rather than just, you know, going there to try to sell something. So
yeah. If you're going in with the intention of I want money, you're going to have some real big disappointments, because you have to be there for them the same as you want them to be there for you.
And what are the big events that you recommend that screenwriters go to if they do want to pitch something? What are the must go to events to actually meet some of these producers and people that could,
it all depends on where you are, really. Just about every country, I'm sure, has film festivals.
Yes.
They have, and those film festivals have screenwriting competitions, as well as they have seminars and they have classes, and they do have meet and greets and pitches at the festivals too for screenwriters. So your best bet is hone your skills at home, right? Go to whichever festivals you can find in your neighborhood. Volunteer to work on a shoot, because you'll meet more people that way than anywhere else. I mean, I did a lot of extra acting, but my purpose was to see how what was on the page got turned into screen. What it took. You know, if you want the screenshot there that's looking down at that. Well, you know what? I now know how long it takes to set that up. Because I was on set and I was watching them set this up. And I was watching them set this up at 35 below 0 Celsius. And when the cameras decided to freeze, because it was too cold. They hadn't had enough time outside to climatize. So we had to wait for them to the cameras to climatize. So there's more time. And when you have hundreds of people standing around all getting paid, minutes are dollars, literally, and huge dollars. So you know, when in my screenwriting, it's like, okay, well then why would I do a crane shot in the middle of wintertime where this could take 5 hours instead of 3/4 of an hour to set up, right? So I mean, you start making smart choices even on your shot angles in your script. Even though in a spec script you're not allowed to say crane shot, you're not allowed to say. You have to give them the visual so that they understand it's a crane shot, or that they understand it's you know two people talking in front of a Macy's window. That tells whoever's reading it, you're seeing the whole body of two people, right? It's a full shot. That's how it'll be marked once you go to a shooting script, right? So you have to describe it in a way that they get the picture. Right now, this is it. I'm seeing these two people right there in front of this window.
Very good. So you really need an understanding of the end result, I guess, of how it's going to look, and really think about the whole process of the actual production.
Well, and I guess like any other industry, I guess it's the terminology. Especially for screenwriting anyway, because there's certain things are certain things. The screenwriting itself has very few things. I mean, you've got the header, you've got action, you've got dialogue, you've got stuff like this, but there isn't many. It's how you use them that ends up. If you end up writing the actual shooting script, then you have to know all the shot angles, and you have to know you know, how they set up. Is it a full shot, a half shot, a headshot? Yeah, if you know what I mean.
Mm.
That's all
Mm.
just another level above when you go on to
Yeah.
into that form. And
Yeah.
that's a beauty about going into pre-production with well, like we've got Brett Varvel from House of Grace Films, who is going to be our director for Laurel Guard, and talking to him, you get all the angles. You know, from him, you learn a whole new dialogue on how you're looking at the script and what is in there and what kind of shots it is and what type, even down to what type of camera, you know. But I mean, even our cinematographer Raf, I mean, he went even farther into what type of cameras, what kind of lenses, what kind, you know, and lighting and everything else in between, right? And you know, but and all of that comes around to now you're adding, when we added like just even the FX, right? I mean, we've got Michelle Mulkey, FX Studio. She had worked on Chronicles of Riddick, believe it or not. I mean, she was one of the ones that was making all that armor for all of those people, right? And it was just insane, right? But even her take on it now is down to the fine details. We have to know now exactly how many people we need, you know, how many are Army, how many are Marine, how many are Navy, how many are Air Force, and exactly, and what uniforms are they wearing? Are they wearing fatigues? Are they wearing a dress uniform? Are they in combat gear? What kind of combat gear, right? And this all plays into rebuilding the script again, on and on and on and on, right? Because it just, every person that adds into it adds more to it, you know, including you know, Vicky, who was actually another person I met through Screenwriting You, and she's a sci-fi TV series director in Toronto, right? And all I can say is thank goodness I did know of her from Screenwriting You, because then I could get a hold of her and she ended up as now being our Canadian arm for, you know, her production company is now the Canadian arm of the production, because Vassilis is in Greece, right? So, but now he's moving to Canada in order to do the productions.
Awesome.
So, you know, but again, Vicky again brought new stuff into the film, and part of it was the, okay, can we afford to do that? Yes or no, and can we do that with this type of camera instead? Do we need 4 cameras or do we need 2? Do we need 1 camera? Do we need this type of camera or do we need this type of camera? Because they're all different and they all cost different amounts to rent, lease, buy, whichever it is you're going to do. But it brought a whole new level to watching how you're setting these things up and how you're going to actually film them now. Right? Because now you know exactly, okay, we're going to use this camera, we're going to use 2 of them, not 4, right? And you know, this is the, you know, because I mean, you've seen it yourself. You've got camera 1, 2, 3, 4, depending on what the filming is, you could have that many. But if you want to get certain angles, and you have to get certain angles and a certain type of shot, then yes, you need to have that specialty camera that can do that shot. And those ones will blend in with the other ones, but you only need that shot for a very short time. So, you know, to balance that out, you're only using one of the other cameras because this one is taking care of this part. So, and that's the main big part that you have to capture. So the other camera has to be, well, obviously good enough, definitely good enough and up to par for the industry, but it doesn't have to be as specialized as this other one that's going to cost an arm and a leg, and especially if you're needing 2 or 3 of them, which yeah, usually is unusual, I think.
So much to consider, isn't there? Geez. It's a big,
yeah. When you're it's like when you say going from script to production.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I say it isn't going to take days. It's going to take a long time to get this set up. This is why it takes years. And a huge part of it is the team getting to know each other. The whole production team getting to know each other and figuring out how to work with each other. And, you know, once you mesh into a solid team like we have now, I mean, then, you know, and everything is set. It's all ready. We just need to start. That's it. We just need to start. So we're kind of in the pre-production. So we're, you know, like one step from, well, financing is, you know, it's on the table. So the hope is to start filming July 1st on the first feature. And
you mentioned you like sci-fi. You like doing sci-fi. However, in your sci-fi, there's often, you know, bits of comedy through there. There's action. There's thriller moments. So, you know, how many genres could you cover in a one sci-fi film?
Well, you know, it all depends on who is actually watching the film. You know, because I mean, everybody puts a view on things from what we have learned in our own life, right? So I mean, that's the spin that we put on anything we see new. We automatically see it through our experience, right? So whether that's a horror to you, or a thriller, or a suspense, you know, it's very individual. But the fun part, the hard part is to make it interesting enough to capture a lot of people's imagination in the first place.
Yes, and that's part of the beauty of the art form. And what about discipline? How important is discipline to actually see a script through to completion?
Well, basically, you know what? If you cannot sit down at your desk, you're not ever going to finish. So yeah, you can set yourself a time limit if time limits work for you. It doesn't work for everybody. For me, no, I don't set a spec. I don't, you know, sit there and write so many hours a day. I don't do that. Just simply because I've got more than one project going at the same time. So it's, if I only had one I was working on, I would probably be sitting down 8, 10, 12 hours and just go and do and figure out, you know, and work it as you go. With Kaz and I co-writing, we'll quite often do it, like I said, 8 hours straight up. We're writing, and we'll do that once a week. Maybe twice a week, depending on well, how much fun we're having with it. Because then the more often you know, we get it done very, very fast that way. Like Mr. Forever was done in record time compared to Rogan'sWar, but Rogan'sWar required a huge amount of setup because it is a much larger picture. Because in Mr. Forever, you're working with a limited locations as well as limited characters, and it's only the same characters throughout the whole thing. You're not ever meeting anybody else new as you're going along. These are the people in the town. These are the people here, you know, and it's the interactions between the same group of people, the same groups of people, right? But Rogan'sWar is a whole different story that evolves and morphs and evolves some more.
Beautiful. So what are some of your long-term plans, Orlanda?
Oh, wow. Long-term plans. Well, obviously I'm going to be working on Laurel Guard for quite a while, which is really awesome because the story is just fabulous. Absolutely. I mean, you know it's good when you surprise yourself. You know, with you know, what you've written in or what you've added, or you know, or or what he's changed this altogether and put in a whole new tact, and you go, wow, because now you can totally visualize it, and it just all brought everything together, you know. But it's those little key type of things that you don't hit until after you've written a few drafts, right? Because then you have to step away from it. You learn new things. You learn from life. You learn from writing something else. You whatever, and then you get a brainstorm. You go back and you go and you know, change that bit of weaving into a different pattern, and that pattern turns out to be a whole heck of a lot more exciting, right?
Yeah, nice. And we're coming to the end of our show. So before we go, how can people get in touch with you, Orlanda?
Oh, well, I have a website, orlandaszabo.com. Easy enough to find. I don't think there's anybody else with my name, so if you Google my name, I'm the only one you're going to get.
Awesome. Like me, yay!
Just like you. Same with Kaz. Kaz is the same way. Kaz is the same way, which is cool. But I've also I'm on Facebook under, well, obviously same name, Twitter, LinkedIn. But I'll also be available through Epagon Pictures as their consultant and script editor, and that'll be epagonpictures.com. And that's where you'll also find all the upcoming news and links to the preludes and everything else when they become available.
Fantastic. And if people actually want some coaching on their own scripts, do you consult? Do you do pay?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And it's everything is on an individual basis because every script is different, and the amount of work that every script needs is also different. You know, and whether it's a TV or a feature, it doesn't matter either way. I prefer sci-fi, fantasy, going suspense, thriller, action. Those are my my strong points. So
yeah, nice. And look, it's been absolutely brilliant to have you on the show, Orlanda.
Oh, it's been fantastic.
Yeah,
thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, particularly the fact that it's been from 2 to 3 a.m. in Canada right now, where you are. So particularly grateful that you've popped on at such an obscure hour in the morning. And any final words you'd like to say before we wrap up?
Well, thank you very much for having me come on. I think this is, as I say, work tech and working in the film industry. It's just great to be part of pushing the tech and getting to know new people all over the place because of online. Yeah, that's the fun part, is meeting people that actually understand the same language you're talking about.
Yes, and that's the beauty of the arts, I guess, is that it is something that can cross cultures. Is that people understand the arts? Arts and culture is something that goes way back in history for so many different cultures.
Yes,
and it is a universal language.
Yes, art is. If you're a novelist, you'll understand the terminology. You'll understand the process somebody else has to go through. If you're a screenwriter, same thing. If you're a painter, the same thing. The sculptor, the same thing. Out of everything, talking to people who do the same thing you do, you know instinctively that they know what you're talking about without having to explain yourself.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much. Yeah. Sorry,
you bet.
Yeah.
No, I'm good. Thank you very much, Aldwyn.
Thank you so much, Orlanda. And big round of applause from our audience. From our virtual audience in the studio here in Southport on the Gold Coast. We've just been chatting with Orlanda Szabo. I hope I said that right. Is that right? Szabo? Orlanda?
Szabo.
Orlanda Szabo. We've been chatting to Orlanda Szabo from Canada here, a wonderful Canadian screenwriter who's done over 20 features now of her own, and she's an awesome screenwriter. So connect with her on her website. Just Google her name. She's the only one out there, as I am, and it's been an absolute pleasure to have her on. And if you're watching this, if you've enjoyed what you've seen today, please share the love. Make sure you like my YouTube channel, Aldwyn Altuney, and share the love. We'd love to see any comments, questions, feedback at all. Please pop it under this YouTube video, or if you're watching this on social media anywhere, just pop a comment on there, and we'd love to hear from you. You can connect with me personally, Aldwyn Altuney, on all the social media, all the main channels: Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Google+, Pinterest, Instagram, Snapchat, and of course YouTube, and on my website aaxpose.com. So this is a wrap now on the very first Star Xpose TV. Very excited that Orlanda has been the guest on the very first show, and Kaz Drysdale, her co-writer, will be on a show, most likely the next show that we run here, and I'm really excited to be chatting with her too very soon. Thanks so much for joining us today, and here's to letting the star shine from within you. Have a great day or night, wherever you are in the world, and we'll catch you again soon. Bye for now.